Taichi is a weak, pathetic high school student with no talent nor hose and is friend-zoned by his hot childhood friend. However, his life suddenly changes when he's summoned to another world and becomes the most powerful magician of all time, capable of destroying entire armies and collapsing countries within seconds. One day, when he and Rin were going to school to attend their club activities, Mumen Rider takes over Truck-kun's mission and almost runs over both of them. Luckily, Taichi's quick reflexes save his best friend from certain isekai anime tropes, but it doesn't save him from getting aimbotted by a mysterious magician from another world. Some Harry Potter bullshit starts to envelop his body, so he pushes Rin away from the magic circle to protect her. But she's got a room temperature IQ and runs towards him anyway, sending both of them to another world. A few minutes later, they wake up and thankfully, both of them spawn in a relatively safe area. With the duo safe and sound, he and Rin start looking around for any town, while Rin is looking for a Wi-Fi signal in the middle of nowhere. Taichi stops for a moment and uses his remaining 2 brain cells to determine whether they've been transported to Wakanda. But the horse from Berserk appears in front of them and starts horsing around. The horse is so demonic, its eyes are super red from all the stoop dog grass edibles it ate, and is determined to stomp them to death. Seeing how extremely screwed they are, Taichi tells Rin to run away as fast as she can because he'll be using himself as bait. So even if he dies, at least she'll be safe, as long as she can outrun that buff-ass evil horse straight out of Planet Fitness. But she tells him to stop because this is not how they do things together. However, despite her pleas, Taichi runs like an absolute dork toward the horse and throws a stone at the enraged beast, and then starts wondering why it didn't affect the horse literally high on steroids. With his absolute genius plan failing, Taichi's literally cooked at this point, but thanks to plot armor, some bald bastard appears out of nowhere, along with his trio squad, wiping out the buff, evil horse in one go. Looking at their saviors, Taichi realizes that they're all adventurers and he's not tripping because while this world might be like an RPG, it's actually as real as the One Piece, and if they can get much higher than their current level, they'll make it out alive and survive to tell the tale. So after learning about the basics of the world and arriving at the town of Aspire, he tells Rin that they should register as adventurers and find a way to survive in this new world before they end up poor and starving to death. Before leaving, Balti gives them a head start, so at least they can survive for the first few days of their new journey. A few minutes later, he and Rin arrive at the Adventurers Guild and the guild clerk, Marie, asks them if they're going to register as adventurers. The duo tells her they will, and so she gives them the guild manual and asks them to take an aptitude test because they can't be adventurers all of a sudden if their skills are pure dogshit. This worries both of them because they might have 0 magic powers, which will mean they're gonna end up in some medieval shitter. But she takes the test anyways and a few seconds later, some Christmas lights appear inside the crystal ball, surprising Marie. She's flabbergasted and starts wondering whether Taichi is also the same, so she asks him to touch the ball as well. But his Taichi's power is so cracked, it actually cracks the crystal ball, revealing his great potential. Marie is so shocked at what she's witnessing that she calls the manager to help with these 2 unbelievably overpowered Karens. A few seconds later, the guild master Gerard and the powerful elven swordswoman Miura appear before them and tell them the bad news. Taichi and Rin can't register as adventurers right now because of reasons he can't tell. So he orders Miura to take the duo and bring them to a designated place away from the guild hall. A few hours later, they arrive at an isolated hut somewhere in the kingdom, and Lemiya, a smoking hot MILF dressed in nothing but Victoria's Secret's latest lingerie, greets them. Miura questions her house outfit, but she argues that it's her house and she gets to dress what she wants. After dressing up, Miura briefs her on Taichi and Rin's situation and tells her what the results of the aptitude test were. So Lemiya hands them an enchanted wooden tablet, telling them that these tablets will determine their magic capacity and strength, which will allow her to know whether they're pure shit or actually good shit. So both Taichi and Rin take the tables, and after Lemiya activates them, the tablets finally reveal their magic power. A few seconds later, the results finally appear and their powers are actually batshit insane. Seeing the potential in both of them, Lemiya declares that starting today, the 2 best friends are going to be her apprentices. Taichi's powers are beyond the realms of possibility because his magic capacity is capped at 120,000, with a magic strength of 40,000, while Rin stands at a magic capacity of 37,000 and a magic strength of 5,000. According to Miura, Lemiya, who is the greatest mage in all of the kingdom, only has a magic capacity of 43,000 and a magic strength of 6,000, while she only has a magic capacity of 35,000 and a magic strength of 3,800. She explains that normally, humans only have a maximum magic capacity of 10,000 and a magic strength of 2,000, which is enough to get the rank of a royal mage or knight in the capital city. But their sudden appearance literally puts the entire kingdom to shame because, with this revelation, Taichi and Rin are currently the most powerful people in the entire world. But Lemiya tells them that despite their overwhelming power, they're still practically babies compared to her. She can completely smoke them without breaking a sweat because they don't know how to use their powers properly. What's more, if they can't use their powers properly, they're pretty much dead because controlling such a tremendous power requires thinking and mastery, and they don't do that shit. So Taichi asks Lemiya what will happen if he can master his powers, so she responds and tells him that he can basically annihilate entire countries and continents, probably even the world if he wants to. With his unrivaled power, he can even become the king of his own country and defeat the main character of 100 Canoe Joe by having unlimited anime bitches in his harem, and even become Elon Musk himself by having infinite money. So the next day, Taichi trains with Lemiya, while Rin trains with Miura to unleash their potential as magicians. It turns out, Rin is basically the Avatar due to her ability to control and use all 4 elements, making her a quad magician and the perfect student for Miura to train, who can control 2 elements. But Taichi isn't like her, because it turns out he can't control any elements. All Lemiya tells him he's a sorcerer, a unique type of magician capable of unleashing the powers of elemental spirits that exist in their world. Basically, he can command the elemental spirits to fight for him, while having access to all of their full powers. But to actually do that, he needs to accept some terms and conditions, a pact if you will, to unlock his full potential. So Lemiya teaches him the basics of controlling his power to determine what type of sorcerer he is, but his stamina is literal garbage, so he can only do so much. Meanwhile, Rin's training is going great because she's a fucking nerd who paid attention to science class, applying real-life physics laws to her magical abilities and creating a new type of fire that even Miura herself has never seen before. After a few hours, she visits Taichi, who's tired as shit after doing absolutely nothing and achieving 0 results. He tells her that he can't manifest his powers, so it's all meaningless, but she tells him to concentrate and focus on his inner power. So he closes his eyes and starts focusing on his power, and after a few seconds, he starts hearing the same voice that he's been hearing ever since they were transported into the world. The voice guides him where he should focus his attention, so he follows it, and after a few seconds more, his hands start glowing like a fucking smartphone at 3 in the morning, revealing one of his new powers. After unlocking their powers, the duo goes back to the house and Taichi eats everyone's dinner like Nikocado avocado. Lemiya commends them for learning something new, but tells Taichi that she's going to teach him more magical shit, because he hasn't really done anything particularly interesting other than make his hand glow brightly. She's going to get physical with him, and by that, she means that Taichi will get pushed to the absolute limit of his magic capacity, because she's going to drain him like a succubus. And so the next day, Taichi goes to the field to fill her up. But it turns out it's a scam because he's actually gonna be fighting giant wolves for training, while Rin is frying wild rabbits left and right. But their training is soon interrupted when one of those buff as fuck horses appears again. However, they'd been so powerful themselves that they actually skipped the entire fight and went straight into the celebration cutscene. Lemiya commends both of them for a job well done, telling them they're now graduates from her speed magic training course and cannot be considered full-fledged adventurers. But before sending them back to Aspire, she reveals to them that they're called Lost Ones, individuals who were summoned from their own world and brought into this world by either a powerful event or a powerful sorcerer. But she bets that they've been summoned by a powerful sorcerer capable of wielding space-time magic. So if they want to return home safe and sound, they better start hunting down this sorcerer and ask them why they've been summoned in the first place, and ask them how to go back to their home world. Hearing this, Taichi, with a smile on his face, tells everyone that he's going to beat the living shit out of that sorcerer once he finds out where he's hiding, and then everyone claps. Later that night, his hands start glowing again, and a mysterious voice calls out for his name. The voice tells them he's stupid, but she's going to meet him soon enough. The next day, he and Rin return to Aspire and start doing some side quests here and there to get that bag and a promotion out of E rank, which is the lowest rank as an adventurer. After 2 weeks while looking at potential areas to scout and make some money, Almeida, the guild maid, gives Taichi a summon letter coming from the guild. Upon arriving at Gerard's office, Rory hands them information about their new quest. Apparently, some goods were being stolen from shops and wagons, and Gerard thinks they know where the stolen goods are being sold to, which is a bar somewhere in the town. Taichi's goal is to observe the place, investigate whether the reports are true, and apprehend anyone who's involved with the shit that's going down there. Upon reading the quest info, he complains that the quest is 1 rank above theirs, which is D rank, but Gerard insists they take on the quest because he's a cheap bastard and he ain't gonna start pumping up the rewards for a smuggling investigation when there's a disposable E rank adventurer that he can rely on. But more importantly, if they take on the mission, they'll be promoted to D rank, which means they can take on harder but more rewarding quests. So, upon hearing this proposition, Taichi and Rin take on the job and travel to the slums to start their quest. On the way, they stop for a hot minute to buy some fruits, but shit is so expensive. They can only afford to buy 3 for 1 silver. That's when they realize how bad the smuggling problem is, especially since the town relies heavily on imported goods. And if they can't get to the bottom, this will be the first Isekai'd anime town that is so poor, citizens will die from starvation. The vendor also tells them rumors are floating about that the smuggling isn't just the cause of this problem, because various monsters also prey on trade caravans. Basically, the logistics are fucked and everyone in town will soon be fucked if both Taichi and Rin fail their mission. So to sort this mess out and prevent things from spiraling into deep shit, the duo visit the reported bar and start asking questions, dropping a bag of gold to close a deal with them. But the bartender tells them to fuck off because they're not going to fall for the feds and the obvious IRS bait. So the barman starts surrounding them to beat them up. But it was a mistake on their end as Taichi beats them up instead. One of the guys confesses that some man asked them to smuggle goods and send them to the bar. According to them, when they arrived at one of the target wagons, it was already attacked and there was nothing left but the cargo. So they took the loot and dropped it at the entrance of the town. After the confrontation, the bartender tells them to fuck off already because it's a usual occurrence anyway, and he doesn't need their money. So duo comes out empty-handed, but at least they have a lead now and they know exactly where to go next. On the way to the entrance of Aspire, a group of stupid fucks appear out of nowhere to ambush them. Female assassins block their way and immediately go after Rin, but Taichi takes the front line and squares off with one of the assassins. He then uses jetic powers to send someone flying to a brick wall, permanently damaging their spinal cord while Rin uses airbending to bend this bitches back to the ground. Taichi goes for the finishing blow by knocking the assassin out. With one of the assassins unconscious, he asks them what they'll do, and one of the assassins throws a smoke grenade. Disappearing out of the scene, however, once the smoke clears, it's pretty clear that they don't give a shit about their teammates and left one of their comrades behind. So he takes the assassin captive and takes her back to the guild hall where Gerard imprisons her for the time being. The next day, he visits the guild again and Miura praises them for their recent promotion to D rank before talking about their next objective, which is to investigate the reported monster attacks on the trade caravans. Taichi tells her that everything is going to shit faster than he can get bitches because last night, they can still afford to buy 3 fruits for 1 silver. But now they can only get 1 and he can't even get 1 bitch for himself. So Miura asks them to party up with her because she's got a lead and they need to go there fast. Apparently a powerful magician is suspected of being one of the culprits, stealing fruits from a nearby farm, and the farmers can't fight back because they have pitchforks and hoes instead of assault rifles and machine guns. A few hours later, the group arrives and meets the farmers, including Cassum, who tells them that he's the one who filed the request. But when he shakes hands with him, Taichi senses something is off about him, but doesn't tell anyone about it. The farmers then lead them to the plantation and Rin's bullshit detector starts beeping like crazy, indicating the presence of an ugly bastard and 3 Reddit mods nearby. When the monsters appear, the trio goes all out, with Miura cutting down the porkies like it's a cooking video. Meanwhile, Taichi goes for the ogre and punches its head so hard, the time changes from afternoon to nighttime. After completing their quest, he tells everyone about his suspicions and how they're probably walking into a trap. But Miura tells him that it's probably too early for spoilers. She tells them that what they should focus on is the powerful magician behind all of the thefts. The next day, Taichi and the farmers visit the plantation again to do their usual patrols. But Miura notices some footsteps, which lead them to a recently burnt campfire, indicating that the reports are true and that there's actually someone stealing the fruits, and it's probably the same magician whose identity they haven't discovered yet. Rin's bullshit detector starts beeping again, telling them that there's probably dealing with 3 people this time, so they immediately head to the area where the culprits are. When they arrive, Taichi interrogates them and threatens to send them to Brazil, scaring the living shit out of them. So the thieves confess to their crimes and tell them that it was the female mage's fault, because she set them up to fail. After confirming that they're connected to the female mage, their job is basically halfway done. Cassum expresses gratitude for helping him, and the farmers capture the petty criminals. But Taichi confronts him about how soft his hand is. He almost mistakes him for a femboy. He notices how rough and callous the hands of the farmers are compared to him, which makes him the most sus out of all the people they've encountered so far. All because his hands don't look like he's farming anything other than karma points from Reddit. His hands are too clean, giving them op vibes, so they question him further. But this is when Cassum finally says, "Sheesh, you got me," revealing himself to be the mastermind behind the tomfoolery happening all around them. Apparently, everything's just a test in order to lure them into the middle of the plantation, because he needs to know his ops and what he's dealing with, praising Taichi for his commendable talent. But he calls them stupid for being too careless, and then suddenly, a woman named Lemiya appears before them. She declares that she'll be fighting the girls, while Cassum is going to 1v1 Taichi to see who's stronger. Cassum immediately pops his Pokemon, summoning a frost elemental to fight for him. Taichi powers up and hops into battle, giving Cassum no leeway to counterattack. But when he lands an attack on the frost elemental, he simply phases through it, so basically didn't land any attack at all. Cassum calls him an idiot for attacking a bodiless elemental, mocking his abilities because he literally can't hurt this monster unless he can unleash his own magic. This means that the frost elemental is actually the perfect matchup for both Rin and Miura, and Grammy for him. But because they're separated, he can't really do anything without endangering both of his party members. So he keeps attacking the frost elemental, but because it has no body, it just regenerates what appears to be its body. But it's clear that the elemental has the upper claw in this battle, and basically, Taichi is fucking stupid. So to mentally challenge him even further, Cassum feeds the frost elemental a magic meatball, evolving the monster into a red elemental, further increasing its power by tenfold. With its evolved form, it's much faster, stronger, better, and stupidly overpowered, that a mere charge sends Taichi flying, giving him the ability to cough ketchup. Cassum tells him that all he wants is his power, and the reason why he made up all that shit about fruit thieves and caravan raids was because he wanted to lure the 3 of them in the middle of nowhere, so that he can take all their powers for themselves. But to do that, they'll need to chain him up first, and then he'll sell both Miura and Rin to the starving Discord mods outside their country. This angers Taichi, but he's no match for the red elemental because he's so weak he can't even damage it. Cassum regroups with Grammy, who is thoroughly defeated by the combo of Rin and Miura, showing them a heavily wounded and unconscious Taichi. But he wakes up, so the red elemental steps on him again, forcing the duo to yield to Cassum's demands. Seeing that he's about to lose both girls to rent-a-girlfriend fans, Taichi can't help but strangle Cassum, but he's too weak to do anything, so he loses consciousness. During this period, he wakes up inside his mind, and hears the same voice he's been hearing all this time. He thinks he's going insane. The green orb asks him if he wants power, and of course, he says yes. So the green orb gives him the power, activating his Soyam like he's CJ and telling him her name is Ariel. After that exchange, he returns to the mortal world and finally gains the glow-up he's been waiting for. He finally becomes the Isekai'd cheap magician, gaining the power of the air elemental Ariel and one-shotting the red elemental with the full power of the last airbender. Seeing the elemental defeated, both Cassum and Grammy retreat, but he ain't gonna let them. However, the side effects of their informal pact start to take a toll on his body. So in a last-ditch effort to defeat Cassum, Taichi goes full Captain Price and dismembers Cassum's right arm before losing consciousness. After the fight, he wakes up in one of the rooms inside Lemiya's house. After seeing he's pretty much recovered, Lemiya gives him a buffet so he can get back all the energy he lost. After finishing his meal, she finally explains what's going on. It turns out, after doing that Isekai'd cheap magician shit, Taichi fell into a coma and is practically a vegetable the entire week due to the severe punishments he received for performing an all-out attack. Apparently, his power-up isn't really free and isn't a cheat at all because he suffered the drawbacks of unleashing his full power, His 120,000 magic capacity was drained to the core after his transformation, so recovering all of it took his body a staggering 7 days to fully regenerate from scratch. Thanks to both Miura and Rin, he is able to recover faster while in her care, but she interrogates him about what had transpired in the forest that led to his vegetative state. After hearing this story from him, she believes it was caused by a ritual called the Crimson Pact, a powerful ritual magic that turns regular monsters into rage-induced monsters cooked up by 10,000 Red Bull cans. This powerful pact uses the blood of fallen men and monsters alike, transferring their energy into a meatball made of pure magic, causing regular monsters to turn into regular monsters, but they're red and very angry. She also learns from Taichi that he managed to make contact with the wind elemental Ariel, so now it's clear what type of unique magician he is. It turns out he's actually a summoner, a powerful sorcerer capable of commanding and using an elemental's power by forging a binding pact with them. The more powerful the bond is, the stronger he becomes, and to strengthen said bond, he'll actually have to become some sort of Pokemon trainer/dating sim gamer, because that's the only way to increase his and his elemental spirit's powers. Later he goes back to Aspire after recovering his power and asks Almeida where the bitch is at, but she has no idea where they are, so he goes out for a bit, thinking of what to do with the information he has about his new abilities. While strolling around town, he happens upon a commotion between two men forcing a young woman to come with them. So he butts in and the woman immediately pulls out of the men's grasp, who then clings to him as if she knows him. One of the men tries punching him, but the woman pulls Taichi out of Range, while he counterattacks, shaking the thugs out of their asses. The woman then thanks him for saving him, but he knows how well she would have been able to pull herself out of that situation without his help. So the woman reveals they've actually met before, and her name's Anastasia, one of the assassins who attacked him and Rin a few weeks ago. She tells him that she's changed now and turned a new leaf after being humiliated and left behind by her own comrades. So instead of stabbing people, she's just waiting for Taichi to passionately stab her all night long. After this brief encounter, he and Anna party up and start investigating her former comrades, tracking them down to one of their previous headquarters in the inner city. After disabling all of the guards, Taichi blasts the door and finding a piece of terrible information. Following the instructions on the paper, he and Anna arrive at an underground tunnel leading deeper into the city proper. The paper contains information about an upcoming invasion of an unknown number of goblin hordes under the effects of Crimson Pacts preparing to raid the city, so they follow the trail, leading them to a door tightly shut. He plans to blast the door as always, but Anna takes the lead and lockpicks the door, thinking it might be booby-trapped. After confirming it's not, the two proceed inside to investigate to track down the rumored goblin horde. Meanwhile, both Rin and Miura are enjoying the nightlife when suddenly a hooded assassin attacks them. Miura orders everyone to evacuate and squares off with the assassin, while Rin casts offensive magic to support her. But just as she's about to finish off the assassin, she gets counterspelled by 3 mages on the rooftop. And then Granny appears behind them, knocking Miura unconscious before taking off with her. Rin tries to follow her, but the assassin keeps her preoccupied, so she starts blasting, defeating both the mages and the assassin in one go. She soon meets Granny once again, but this time, Granny tells her where Miura is being held and warns her that she's about to be sacrificed for a Crimson Pact. If she doesn't hurry, there's gonna be nothing left of Miura and her knife ears. So Rin leaps into the building and freezes everyone, before freeing Miura out her chains. But it seems like the mastermind behind all of this knows she's coming, because the moment she frees Miura, the man arrives along with Cassum. He admits that everything was his doing, including Cassum's petty thievery scheme, which he took credit for. But he's not here to fight because he's just an informant, and he informs them that a massive army of over 3,000 monsters is marching to the city walls, and they're about to unleash hell upon its citizens if they tarry any longer. Between putting the man to justice and the safety of the citizens, both the girls choose the latter as they immediately head off to the Adventurers Guild to report what's happening. With the city in peril, Gerard orders Marie to issue a call to arms for all the adventurers in the city and nearby areas to rendezvous in the guild hall as they're about to head to their first ever war against monsters. Although he really wants Toichi's involvement, both Rin and Miura assure him that they'll do what Toichi cannot, which is to be physically present at 2 locations at once. Lemiya also joins the party because she knows they'll need her help in their biggest battle yet. An hour later, most adventurers arrive at the guild hall and they start planning on what to do to prevent a siege from happening. But given their numbers, Lemiya believes they can't waste any resources in a battle of attrition since they're pretty much walking corpses the moment they try that. Instead, she opts for a better plan of nuking the monsters with a tactical-grade magical explosion, which is going to be taxing, even for her. But Rin has a better idea and volunteers to do another one of her Phineas and Ferb wacky magical experiments. Her idea is to basically do a steam blast explosion, which usually happens with volcanoes. Upon hearing her apeshit ideas, both the guild, Lemiya, and Miura just let her cook. When the first light of the morning comes, the first horde of monsters arrives, and she patiently waits before collapsing a large part of the plains, causing most of the monsters to fall down a pit. Then she starts drowning them with huge quantities of water, before vaporizing it with a large fireball, turning the entire pit into the worst possible recreation of the Pompeii eruption, subjecting hundreds of poor fuckers to man-made horrors beyond their comprehension. With the initial wave wiped out, Gerard rallies everyone to counterattack and maintain their initiative. Meanwhile, deeper into the city's underground levels, an earth golem almost crushes Anna, but Teichi saves her and he promises that so long as he's around, he will not allow anyone or anything to harm her. He launches a counterattack and immediately destroys the golem in one shot, which opens up the next room, leading them to their most terrible encounter yet. Inside is a nest filled with rage-induced red goblins powered by Twitter Insanity and Crimson Pact, who are also being commanded by two little shits called Mello and Milo. Toichi asks the kids what they're going to do, and the kids tell him that the goblins have orders to assault the city and everyone in it. He warns them that the goblins aren't going to follow their orders, but the little shits use the same Crimson Pact orb, releasing the goblins at him and Anna. But as soon as they finish their ritual, the crystal ball breaks, and suddenly the goblins switch teams and start friendly firing the kids as well. However, he saves both the kids from certain death, and whatever horrors the goblins usually do to poor adventurers in the Goblin Slayer anime. Anna is already surrounded by goblins, so he takes both the kids and leaves both of them in Anna's care, as practice in becoming a single mom in the future. Taichi then adjusts his power scaling to a minimum to minimize magic capacity consumption. After a couple of hours of fighting, he and the rest travel back to the surface, linking up with Gerard and the adventurer army. At the same time, the Crimson Pact monsters start appearing, with 3 fugly ogres commanding them. Lemiya and the girls take on the ogres themselves, requesting the duo to cover for her while she's chanting her most powerful spell. After a few seconds, she unleashes her ultimate attack and casts it toward the ogres. But for some reason, they're tough as fuck and are still standing after taking in the full brunt of her spell. Hearing the explosion, Taichi tells Anna to stay with the injured and treat them, while he's out supporting Lemiya and the rest. However, when he arrives at the scene, he sees how Rin fails to finish off one of the ogres and resigns to her fate. Just as the ogre is about to turn her into a human tomato paste, he completely blocks the blow, saving the same idiot who can use her air powers to boost herself out of harm to save Miura, but in this particular fight cannot. Lemiya follows up and Miura takes Rin with her when he tells them that he'll handle the remaining ogres. So the 3 girls retreat to safety while he exchanges blows with the hulking giant, easily crushing the monster at one punch. But the remnants of the monster army are still numerous and are now hurtling towards their position. So Teichi tells Lemiya and the rest to hold them off for the time being, leaving the twin Earth magicians to add to their ranks while he's dealing with the remaining ogre generals. While the rest of the adventurer army is fighting the remaining monsters, Lemiya and the 2 girls take the vanguard, crushing any of the remaining elite monsters, crushing even the Crimson Pact monsters with their combined magic power. Meanwhile, Teichi takes on the 2 remaining ogre generals, but all of a sudden, the ground starts shaking violently, and before he can finish off the last generals, a twin-headed dragon appears out of the ground, unleashing its full power at the sky, frying hundreds of birds just trying to be birds. Both armies stop in awe of the dragon's power, but Rin and the rest immediately head to Toichi to aid him in battle. He asks them if all the fighting actually triggers a boss fight all of a sudden, but Lemiya explains it's completely impossible because dragons are above both man and monsters, and according to her, they don't usually give a 2 fucks about war or whatever both sides unleash upon each other. So this is actually the first time a dragon spawns, and they have no fucking clue why. Given the situation at hand, Teichi requests Lemiya to retreat back to the city and evacuate the citizens if worse comes to shit, as he'll be taking on the twin-headed dragon himself. Rin stays with him, telling him that they do things together as usual, but he tells her that she should stay away, because if the dragon tries to destroy her, he'll be acting on reflex by trying to save her, and that'll probably be enough to end him for good. After saying this, he immediately rushes towards the dragon and starts fighting him. But the dragon just casually blocks his strongest attack, sending him flying like he's some chump like Krillin. But Rin doesn't leave the battle until Toichi actually fights the dragon head-on, and one of the heads shoots a fireball at her, warning her to stay away from this fight. But things go south really fast when Anna also appears in the middle of the battle, seemingly out of her mind. Only when she gets to talk to him does she snap out of it, and she has no idea how the hell she ends up in a place where she doesn't belong. Toichi tries to tell her to move along and retreat, but one of the dragon heads shoots a fireball at them, so Anna tries to save him by pushing away. However, the fireball somehow stabs her in the stomach, causing her to die in seconds instead of being incinerated to dust. Anna's death causes Toichi to have a massive power-up because of all the intense rage and hatred that he's been feeling inside him, which is the requirement to fully utilize Ariel's power. The Wind Elemental apologizes to him for her inability to save Anna by giving him powers to protect her, because one of the core rules of the world is for Toichi and her to mutually consent to a binding pact. The one time she allowed him to have a power-up isn't going to happen the second time around, otherwise she'll experience the worst kind of pain. She explains that it's his job to command her as a summoner of spirits, and to command her, he'll need unadulterated raw emotions like anger or hatred, and spirits like her aren't allowed to use their powers without the summoner's command, without his command. She asks him to enter a formal pact with her to formally use her powers to the fullest, and to do that, he must have the conviction to commit to being a summoner, her master. Upon hearing this revelation, Teichi tells her it's not her fault, but his, because he lacked the resolve and conviction to use his powers properly. He knows it's his fault, and he got what he deserved, all because he's too much of a chicken shit to wield power that can level entire nations and topple civilizations to the ground by sending them back to the stone in just one go. So, realizing what he can lose by being weak and pathetic, he fully embraces the responsibility of being the most powerful man in the world, and steels his resolve to finally accept Ariel's proposal, commanding her to lend her powers to him. As he goes back to the mortal realm, he leaves Anna to Rin and faces the dragon for round 2. This time, he's become a full-fledged summoner, commanding the full might of the wind. With this power, he asks the dragon why he's meddling with human affairs, like warring against monsters, and the dragon tells him that if he can defeat him, he'll answer his questions. The dragon then flies high into the sky and unleashes a twin beam of ice and fire, so Teichi counters it with his wind powers, slamming the dragon to the ground in one shot. When the dragon recovers, he honors their terms and finally tells him what's up. Apparently, the reason he appears in the battle is to test Toichi's powers and see if he's actually up to the task, because a certain individual asked for his help, and he gave his powers to this mysterious person because he believed in the ideals that this person holds. What's more, Teichi and Rin arriving in their world isn't just because they were summoned out of an accident or anything, but they'll play a large role in a major battle that will soon decide the fate of the world. Before leaving, the dragon tells Teichi that moving forward, all his actions and whatever place they take him are all guided by that mysterious person, whether he likes it or not. He warns him that stronger foes will soon become an obstacle to him, and if he wants to protect the most precious to him, he'll have to become stronger than he is right now. And so the battle ends with the adventurer army's supreme victory, all thanks to Teichi and Rin's efforts. After the battle, the citizens of Aspire will now have to clean up the mess, including patching up the land that Rin destroyed, as well as the massive holes left by the aftermath of the battle. For the next couple of days, the town is slowly building up its trade routes and economic stability, but Teichi still mourns the loss of his friend Anna. He could easily bag her if it wasn't for the asshole that is that twin-headed fuckface. Thanks to her death, however, he now has the power enough to protect everyone, including the future anime bitches the plot throws his way. A couple of days later, he and Rin travel back to Lemiya's house, where he shows them Ariel as his new elemental summon. Everyone commends him for his new power, but things aren't over yet, because all of a sudden, a carriage from the royal capital of Wenifex arrives. A woman called Alcena Norman introduces herself as the royal page and a daughter of the noble Marcus in the capital, informing them that King Gilmar himself is requesting their immediate appearance. So the group travels with her, and on the way, Rin asks her if there's a problem in the court, especially since all of them were summoned so abruptly. Rin is right on the money, because Alcena tells them that there is, in fact, a problem in the court. For the last 3 decades, the Alistane Magic Kingdom, which includes the town of Aspire and many others, has been governed by the balancing powers between King Gilmore's faction and Duke Dortisheim's council. However, King Gilmore's diplomatic foreign policy is heavily opposed by the Duke, his younger brother, at every step of the way, causing a rift between the two brothers as well as their respective factions. King Gilmore believes that sending magicians as part of his pursuit of diplomacy and internationalization will strengthen the kingdom. But Duke Dortisheim believes this is foolish, because their magicians are the might and pride of the Alistane Magic Kingdom. Sending them to do diplomatic missions will severely weaken the kingdom's military prowess and defenses, which might lead to other nations exploiting this preventable weakness. So there's a brewing revolt that's about to happen anytime soon, and King Gilmore requests for the 4 heroes of Aspire to help them resolve the conflict before it can turn into a bloody civil war. When they arrive at the capital, however, they see that it's pretty much a ghost town and people close their windows whenever Taichi looks at them. The situation is pretty grim, but it's more evident when an assassin tries to dispatch Alcena, which Taichi skillfully prevents from happening. After that incident, the group directly enters the throne room, where King Gilmore and his court are waiting. But the room's atmosphere feels tense and watchful eyes follow their movements closely, so Alcena breaks the ice by introducing the group to Bella, the head magician, General Sumela, the commander of the army, and Princess Charlotte Alistane. A few seconds later, King Gilmore arrives and introduces himself, while commending Taichi and the rest for their efforts during the defense of Aspire. But Lemiya cuts him off and casually asks him what he's really after. Everyone is shocked to hear this display of impudence, because it's the first time they actually see someone talk so casually towards the king, which is usually punishable by beheading. So Gilmore dismisses everyone and tells them to fuck off for the time being because they're going to talk business. Once everyone clears the room, Gilmore tells her she hasn't changed one bit, indicating that they were once on the same level. But he pivots to the real reason why they're here in the first place: Duke Dortisheim's shenanigans. However, Lemiya cuts him off again and tells him that they'll only accept the job if he can meet their demands, so Gilmore just accepts his fate and rolls with it. Before leaving, she confirms if Gilmore is the one behind Taichi and Rin's summoning, and he admits that he actually is, and the reason for it is to help him quell the possibility of a rebellion with their powers. Upon hearing this, Taichi walks forward and confronts the king because he basically deprived them of a normal teenage life by plunging them straight into a world where they almost died to a roided horse. But now they'll have to deal with a civil war that a teenager has no business dealing with, forced to become the king's weapons to slay his enemies. To add to this, Lemiya and Miura tell him that the duo is from a peaceful world where there is no war, so it's a really fucked up situation, but Gilmore assures them they'll take full responsibility. At the meeting, Taichi and Rin finally get to rest, but Alcena visits their room, bringing Princess Charlotte with her. Charlotte apologizes to both of them, revealing that she's a magician capable of wielding space-time magic, and the real magician who actually summoned them in the first place. She apologizes for summoning both of them and dropping them in a monster hot zone. According to her, the reason why she summoned them is because he believes in King Gilmore's vision of bringing peace and stability to the kingdom through diplomatic measures, and she shares the same desire to bring their nation into a prosperous tomorrow. And because she feels strongly for King Gilmore's mission, she believes she must fulfill her duties as a princess by using her powers to summon any life form capable of understanding their language and their magic systems, as well as their political agenda. These requirements fit Taichi as the chosen one, but due to Charlotte's carelessness, Rin also gets teleported along with him when the Duke's assassins breach into the summoning room. She apologizes for what happened, especially to Rin, because according to her, performing the same summoning magic she did can only be done once in a lifetime. So basically, both Taichi and Rin's fate are cooked big time, because they can't go back anytime soon. But Charlotte promises that once the Civil War is over, she'll do anything she can to send them back to Japan, swearing it on her soul. But the duo tells her not to worry because they've met friends along the way, and even if one of them died, they'd all share the same desire to protect the homes of their friends, which includes the entire country. Lemiya then barges into the room and tells them to get ready because they're gonna be fighting in the castle arena, especially Taichi. General Sumela appears soon after, telling him that she needs to assess his worth because King Gilmore values their presence, but she can't tell if they're just wimps or actually built different. So to prove that, he'll have to fight her. Without wasting any second, she immediately leaps into action and attacks him. Taichi successfully parries the blows, but he has trouble maintaining his stance due to Smuggler's relentless attacks, unlike anything he's experienced before. So he tries to use Ares' powers, but he figures that it might actually kill the general. Instead, he just enhances his body, enough to blow both their swords in half, forcing her to fight in hand-to-hand combat. But after he successfully takes down Sumela, she takes him down as well, asking him to take her as his wife, even going so far as to offer herself to be his concubine if he already has someone in mind. She tells him that she values strong people, and because he's strong, she'd really love to be his wife, demanding to have at least 3 kids with him. Later that night, he summons Eri and talks about his trouble wielding immense power, because he knows that with great power comes great responsibility, and he ain't the type of person to always take responsibility. Eri points out that he's probably just scared to hurt people. Even the same people will hurt him anyway. This fear leads to his anxiety and the glaring weakness to dedicate himself to a worthwhile cause, like protecting people around him. Because doing so also means he'll have to hurt people in order to protect the people he cares about, especially Rin, who he doesn't want to dirty her hands with someone else's blood. He wants Rin to live a happy and normal high school life as a regular teenager, so he'd rather do the dirty work instead of dragging her into the mud with him. So, after that talk, he visits her room and finds her fresh out of the shower, and upon seeing her, he immediately starts doing push-ups in celebration. The next day, while looking around the palace, he finds Rin watering the plants. She mentions how desolate the state of the garden is, which reflects the capital city and the nation as a whole. And things are about to go down real quick, because back in his estate, Duke Dortisheim just allowed Marcus Nilden to launch a preemptive strike and initiate a siege on the city of Wenifex, mobilizing a 1,000-strong army arriving at first light the next day. The head magician Bella reports to Gilmore and informs him about the current situation they're in. So Gilmore orders both her and Sumela to mobilize their forces and prepare for the assault. So Sumela briefs everyone about the plan, and it looks like the 1,000-strong army are all the men they can afford. If worse comes to worse, she'll send both Rin and Taichi to deliver the final blow. But Taichi doubts his abilities and thinks that he'll be better off hunting monsters instead of humans. So Lemiya tells him to stop thinking like a beta male and focus on the Sigma male Grenset, which is to protect his loved ones, even if he has to hurt someone. Later that night, he visits Rin, and she asks her to stay with him for the time being. She reminisces about the old days, thinking that they used to do silly things together, but now it's a lot more sillier because they can just vaporize someone to death. What's more, they wield power that a regular high school boy or girl shouldn't have, so that makes her anxious and scared, even when they're about to enter a civil war. So Taichi tells her she doesn't need to fight, because he's the one who's been summoned in the first place, and fighting people shouldn't be her agenda moving forward. But she insists that it's also her fight, because she chose to go with him, and so, even if she's scared and afraid of hurting people, she too will fight for what she believes is right and protect the people most important to her, just like him. Taichi understands her resolve and accepts her conviction, but he promises that he'll protect her no matter what. But just when he's about to make a move, he senses that something is off and immediately closes the windows. In the other room, Lemiya also senses the presence of someone and immediately heads to their room. A few minutes later, an assassin enters their room and stabs the bed, but there is no one there. Taichi enters the room with the girls, hoping to interrogate the assassin to extract more information. But the assassin lunges at them, knife in hand, causing Taichi to act on reflex, beating the living shit out of him for attempting to attack Rin. But Lemiya stops him, which the assassin uses to jump off the battle bus like he's in Fortnite. The next day, the royal forces stand ready at the city gates, waiting for the destined clash between their army and Duke Dortisheim's insurgents. They initially thought they're gonna be fighting only 1,000 forces, but it seems like they're reinforced with 2,000 more. With the enemy lines confirmed, Taichi proceeds with their plan and unleashes Ares' power, creating a large rift between Duke Dortisheim's army and the capital forces. But Marcus Nilgen counterattacks with his magic, raining down a barrage of artillery spells, wreaking havoc on the capital forces' superior numbers. Taichi analyzes the situation, and it seems like the Marcus and his mages are in possession of a magical ring that can seemingly spam spells with zero drawbacks. Lemiya believes those items are going to drain the user's life force as long as they use them, which isn't part of their plan. Taichi wants to avoid as many casualties as possible because they're still citizens of the country, and he doesn't want to have a pointless war escalating even further. So Lemiya devises a plan and uses Rin's power to create rain, dispelling the insurgents' concentration before shocking them like Pikachu. One of the Duke's aides, Inimicus, appears before the Marquis and explains to him what's happening, all before stabbing him to death. With the Marquis defeated and his forces too paralyzed to move, the capital forces win by default and successfully capture a large portion of the Duke's forces. With the capital safe from the siege, everyone starts a massive feast, celebrating their first victory against themselves. However, it is still very obvious that the Duke will not let this slide. A temporary peace does not really mean that it's over, because the next day, King Gilmar summons them again to discuss their next move. But before everything else, he rewards their efforts by letting them choose from the royal armory, which houses all of the kingdom's legendary weapons. Charlotte made an effort to convince him to let them use the weapons for themselves, so they can win more battles for them. Miura takes one of the mithril daggers, Rin takes a legendary staff, Lemiya takes a magic ring, and like what every single man desires the most, Taichi chooses a katana. With the group armed and ready, Sumela challenges him again to a duel, especially now that he's a lot stronger than he was a couple of days ago. However, the effects of overeating still wear him down, so he makes an effort to visit the local market. There he was treated like a celebrity, as every citizen, even the kids, recognized that he was their hero and savior. Everyone admires his valiance and exceptional power, because thanks to him, they're all safe. But they are not the only ones looking at him, because when he leaves the marketplace and walks into a secluded alley, he finally challenges the watchful eyes to reveal himself. It turns out it's Cassum, who's been watching him the whole time ever since the monster war. He hasn't seen Cassum ever since their last fight, and he wonders what happened to his arm. So Cassum explains that it was because of him. Of course, Taichi didn't know this, because after the fight, he collapsed and was in a coma for an entire week, so he didn't know that he almost killed Cassum. Then a few seconds later, he suddenly remembers doing the deed and apologizes for disarming him, but Cassum tells him his intention to end him for good. Hearing this, Taichi tells him that he'll fight him somewhere empty, away from the random civilians who suddenly appeared behind Cassum. But if he ever tries to run away from their match, Cassum warns him that he'll make sure everyone in the city will die from poisoning. So he has no choice but to comply with Cassum's demands. The two arrive at this secluded place, but Cassum tells him he will have to limit his powers, because the reason Taichi won the first time around is due to his bullshit cheats. So this time, he will be forced to fight fair and square without Eri's help, using only his magic abilities. Eri warns him against fighting in the duel, but Taichi's already made up his mind, and he does not want to back down from this fight, especially after what he did to Cassum. He vows that he will also take his remaining arm for the foolishness of challenging him. He tells Cassum he'll beat the armless shit out of him and make him eat his food using his feet for the rest of his life. Once Taichi's in place, Cassum uses the item, and it immediately forces Taichi's power down to Cassum's level. With the preparations complete, Taichi opens up with a Rasengan, but Cassum counterattacks with a melee attack, spamming projectiles wherever Taichi goes. However, Taichi disarms him, so he opts for a counterattack through his magic spam. When they get close to each other, they both resort to punching each other until they're both tired. But Cassum ends his turn by unleashing a Walmart version of Goku's energy ball, so Taichi uses Zoro's skills, cutting through the energy ball and sending Cassum flying next to a brick wall. Taking another L for this fight, Cassum finally admits that Taichi's just built different. However, their fight isn't over, because the magic item that limits Taichi's power suddenly unleashes a very evil aura. Cassum tells him that he just needs to destroy the magical item to release the restrictions in his power, but the evil entity seeps out of the item and tries to attack him. Taichi attacks the formless entity, but he deals no damage, and it starts retaliating by attacking him with his projectiles. Thankfully, Grammy is watching their fight and immediately goes to rescue him by cutting the formless entity in half. But it has no physical body, so she literally did nothing but make the problem bigger. Cassum tells them they should destroy the item, even though he's closer to it, so Grammy throws her sword at the item, releasing its restriction on Taichi. However, this is a mistake, because the evil item's full power was also released along with Taichi's power. But this is just an easy task for him to deal with, especially since he's got his powers back. So he quickly summons Eri to his side, utilizing her full power and enchanting his katana with lightning, obliterating the entity in one shot. Later that day, Grammy tells him why Cassum is so obsessed with him and why taking another loss this time really hurts him. But their talk is interrupted when the city watch sounds the bell, signaling the rebel army's declaration of war. So later that night, the capital forces prepare for another siege on their city. Inside their room, Taichi tells Rin that he'll do his best to protect him, but she refuses, stating that they're going to fight together and she won't be any useless female protagonist, just like in many isekai anime. A few hours later, dawn arrives and Marcus Marches's forces readies his forces for a full-scale assault on the capital. Later that morning, the rebel forces finally arrive at the battlefield and are now waiting for the Duke's signal. Inimicus, the Duke's right-hand man, assures him that they have more than enough forces to deal with the capital's armies, as well as countermeasures against Lemiya and Taichi's overwhelming powers. After securing their foothold and encampment, Duke Dortisheim finally gives the word to begin the siege. Back at the capital's camp, King Gilmore rallies his forces and tells them that Fraud Duke and his army of mentally challenged frauds. On General Sumella's signal, the capital forces charge with all their might and clash against the rebel forces. Rin, Lemiya, and Miura join the vanguard and assist with the footmen, while General Sumella directs the flow of battle. And a class adventurer named Sorcerer joins the battle and challenges Rin, while Marcus Marches takes on Miura, proposing that if she loses, she'll be added to his non-existent harem. Somewhere on the battlefield, a literal nobody challenges Lemiya in a magic battle, counterspelling her magic. However, these fools are literal cannon fodder despite their power because they're all mismatched like bronze players playing against world champions. With the battle already underway, Taichi uses his power to determine Duke Dortisheim's camp, skipping the entire battle by taking on the Duke's camp guards on his own. After doing a superhero landing, he quickly obliterates the camp guards and casually enters the Duke's war room without so much trouble. Everyone is flabbergasted by his sudden appearance because it's not normal for an opponent to randomly appear at the heart of their enemy's camp. Dortisheim recognizes Taichi's talent and knows full well that he and his guards are literally talking to the undisputed GOAT himself, so he tells everyone to stand down and let Taichi cook. When all the guards finally leave, Dortisheim asks him why he's in their camp, and he tells the Duke that he is there to end the war as soon as possible, to prevent needless bloodshed and save their military power. He bargains with Dortisheim and tells him that if he stands down along with his troops, they'll be forgiven for their insolence, and whoever died here is the only loser. But Dortisheim tells him that even though some of them may die, he knows that is a sacrifice he's willing to make, and he cannot stand down for what he believes is right. Eri tries to argue with to change his opinion, but the Duke's decision is final, and he will fight until his last breath to achieve his goal. But before he does that, he questions Taichi's power and his decision to abstain from taking over the capital or even the world, despite being blessed with immense power. He asks him why he's allowing Gilmore to use him as he pleases instead of becoming a king himself. But Taichi's response is simple. Having responsibility sucks ass, and he would rather become powerful and not be tied to any political jibber-jabber like helping his citizens or investigating why a cow is missing from a farm for 2 years. So the Duke asks why not become a dictator and make everyone else absolutely suffer. But he just tells them it's not even worth it because forcing people to like them is just pathetic and sad. Hearing his response makes the Duke burst into laughter because things would have been different if Taichi was on their side. But since they are already here, he cannot afford to lose what he's already losing, so he tells Taichi to fuck off. But while they're busy pretending to be Greek philosophers, Inimicus is already seizing the corpses of the Duke's fallen army, transforming them into mindless zombies. A few seconds later, most of the soldiers on the battlefield become crazed zombies, thanks to Inimicus's design. The entire plains was turned into a breeding ground for mindless zombies, and everything up until this moment was planned from the beginning by the mysterious woman who was behind everything that was happening, including Taichi's arrival into this world. It is the same woman who the twin-headed dragon is serving, and everything that is happening right now, including the civil war, was caused by her. But they have more pressing matters to deal with than a scheming woman, because what Inimicus has unleashed is reminiscent of the same event that happened 200 years ago. This event was known as the Bloody Rhapsody, a countrywide culling that was triggered during the war between the empires of Galgen and Holy Skatolith, which caused the deaths of over 700,000 civilians, including the majority of their military personnel. The bloody rhapsody all started when a magician used the same spell that Inimicus is using, the Mind Eater, which saps the lifespan of affected individuals, while subjecting them to raging mindlessness, causing them not to die even when killed. Apparently, Inimicus is also acting based on the scheming woman's grand design, because this rhapsody is also a test to see whether Toichi is actually capable of doing anything more than he's capable right now. And if he fails here, the world is pretty much done for in the near future. However, Inimicus couldn't really give a flying fuck, because what he's after is power, and the bloody rhapsody will give it to him. He epileptically orders his soldiers to commit war crimes and annihilate everyone who isn't as crazy as them. Chaos ensues in the entire battlefield following his orders, causing the Duke and Taichi to team up to defeat the crazed soldiers. A few minutes later, Inimicus transforms into some kind of demi-human hybrid. 200 years ago, during the era of flashbacks and old history filters, the neighboring countries, Galgian Empire and Holy Scoliosis Empire, were engaged in a bloody conflict, which from one point of the map, quickly spread into the neighboring lands. The battle that they thought would end quickly turns into their worst nightmares as soldiers start having glowing eyes and their minds and bodies are consumed by rage and anger. The angry soldiers started attacking the villagers, and soon the map was painted red, causing countless casualties all over the continent. The bloody conflict turned into a bloody war, which turned into a bloody hell real quick because of the bloody bastards who were behind it. And history repeats itself once again because Inimicus turns a total war skirmish into a Left 4 Dead 2 campaign. Lemiya theorizes that the obvious magic circle above them is the one causing the phenomenon, and if they can't track the asshole casting the spell, Wenifex is cooked, including the entire world. Sorcerer and Rin team up to fight the animated soldiers, but Sorcerer is killing the soldiers faster than she can pacify them. So Rin uses her Yuri powers to persuade Sorcerer to work for her. That way, they can both rescue the soldiers instead of dismembering them. Back at the Duke's camp, Taichi uses his powers to disable the crazed soldiers, but it is not enough to stop them, because the soldiers keep coming back. Dortisheim asks him why he's not cutting his own soldiers down, but Taichi tells him that's not his objective. The Duke tells him whatever Inimicus did was because of that woman, and whatever she's thinking, she's insane for using the kingdom's soldiers for her plans. But they must endure and survive this ordeal, because that's the only way they can understand whatever the fuck is going on inside her head. Dortisheim knows that after this battle, he's going to be beheaded because he read the script, so Taichi tells him it is what it is before powering up so he can off himself. But Eri knows what's up and stops him from doing something as foolish as blaming himself and taking the easy way out. He tells her to move, but she refuses, stating that it's her fault that everything is going to absolute shit because she didn't trust him. Eri admits that she lacks the conviction that she's asking from Taichi, because all this time, she's been lying about her true identity and real powers. Because her Tinkerbell form isn't really her true form, but rather a temporary one. She admits she's scared of Taichi and what he's capable of doing, especially since he wields the power enough to destroy the world. And at the rate that he's been going, he can pretty much end it in just 5 to 7 business days. She needed to see if Taichi was determined and full of conviction for his cause, and wouldn't actually destroy the world if he was given the chance to do so. Because if she really gives her true power, it means whatever Taichi has right now will quintuple, and that's enough to destroy the world 5 times over. If he can't control his powers, it will be even worse for everyone, including her. So she bids him goodbye and tells him psych, because she's actually revealing her true form and powers to him only, before disappearing completely. Rin arrives shortly after and comes to his aid, but she's badly wounded herself, so he runs to hug her and apologize for not being able to help her, promising to end the battle before she can end up as another canon event for him. And so, for the first time ever, Taichi commands Eri's true power and summons the Queen of Spirits, Sylphid, quickly destroying the Bloody Rhapsody spell in one go. With the magic circle destroyed, every single affected soldier returns back to normal, and Sylphid's true form is revealed into the world. Sorcerer quickly recognizes her because she knows she's one of the great spirits of the world. But things are not over yet because he still has one more obstacle to defeat, the demon hybrid Inimicus. Taichi goes into battle mode and squares off with the maniac, asking him who the fuck is the woman he's talking about, demanding him to spill what he knows about the woman and what she wants to accomplish. So Inimicus tells him the spoiler-free plot, revealing that he can actually hear the spirits, even before he is transported into the world. Teichi's destiny is tied to the scheming MILF somewhere in the country, and he is her chosen one. In the near future, a great battle will soon plunge the world into chaos, and to prevent that from happening, Teichi needs to be strong enough to deal with it. Everyone who serves the mysterious MILF, including the twin-headed dragon, lets her cook because they know it's going to be worth it when the time comes. And that same woman will become their savior. But for that to happen, he needs to become her weapon in order to save the world of Altia. But Teichi doesn't want to accept such outrageous demands with an even more outrageous reward, like civilian casualties. So he goes full Jotaro, unleashing his own star platinums equal lefts and rights, beating Inimicus with a technical knockout. But Inimicus is glad that he's powerful enough to take him down, because it means that his mission is over, and he's done what he can to do his part in the upcoming battle. So he urges Teichi to finish him off, so he can finally overcome his weakness of being afraid to end people. But what he doesn't know is that Teichi understands the correlation between power to responsibility more than anyone else, because he's already made up his mind that he's going to become stronger to protect more people. And so he delivers the final blow, vaporizing Inimicus to nothing. After the battle, capital forces return to the city as they finally defeat one of the many hurdles that they're going to face moving forward. Teichi wakes up in Rin's room, where she, Miura, and Lemiya inform him that the battle is finally over. Apparently, he's been in a coma again for the last few days, and everyone is worried for him, including Princess Charlotte. With their victory in Aspire and now in the capital city, peace returns to the country, and now the citizens will have to fix whatever shit they left on the battlefield, just like the last time. But thanks to Teichi's efforts, Aspire didn't implode, and King Gilmore rewarded them with treasures upon treasures worth more than their original rank. However, the pressing matter still remains because there's still an unseen MILF in anime that he hasn't encountered yet, and she's the reason why everyone's life almost went to shit. A couple of days after the battle, he silently ponders on what to do next. He knows that there's more challenges to come, which means more innocent people are going to be in danger. But Lemiya tells him not to worry, because he's got the power, the riz, and most importantly, the most powerful anime girls in his team, even though he's mostly doing the legwork every single time. With their mission over, Teichi bids the princess goodbye and heads back to Aspire with the girls. Before he leaves, Charlotte promises that she's going to send them back to Japan no matter what. After saying their farewells, Teichi realizes what he must do, and that is to convince Kadokawa to get them a Season 2. Will Teichi get a Season 2 and discover the mysterious MILF manipulating the plot? Will he enslave the three great spirits of the world? Common Isekai'd cheat to get absolutely nothing?